Part 38. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 375. 369 Meet again Maxon. I'm glad we met again, Mr. Chunyuan. A bird helicopter descended from the sky, and a man wearing T-60 power armor but no helmet jumped out from it. It's the long-lost paladin Dance of the Brotherhood of Steel. Hee, Dan S.I. I didn't expect that you, a paladin, would come here to do the reception work. Chunyuan said with a smile. Speaking of which, the Brotherhood of Steel is still very efficient. After Chunyuan sent a message on their dedicated AF-95 military channel expressing his desire to negotiate, within an hour, the Asuka helicopter flew overhead. This also shows that the Brotherhood of Steel has always maintained a high degree of concern for the volunteer army. Paladin Dance looked Chunyuan up and down and said, "We also pay attention to some of your achievements, but I can't imagine how you can kill the Mud Crab Queen and the giant super mutant alone. How on earth did you do it?" Chunyuan smiled and didn't answer, but just asked, "How is Knight Reese? Has the fracture on his face healed?" "He has recovered. It's not that the accident that occurred when Knight Reese and Paladin Glade were in contact with the volunteer army was also highly concerned by Elder Maxon. He is also promoting discipline issues within the Brotherhood of Steel." Paladin Dance answer. Is it just a matter of discipline? That is to say, Maxon thinks that the problem with Reese and Glade is that they should show a commercial smile in front of the citizens of the Federation, right? Chunyuan sneered up. Dan S.I. took a deep breath, turned around and made a gesture of invitation, letting Chunyuan get on the plane. When Chunyuan passed him by, he whispered, "This is not a question I can answer. But you actually have the answer in your heart, right?" Chunyuan stopped and asked back. Dance didn't speak. "I think you understand what changes have taken place in the minds of the current members of the Brotherhood of Steel and those who were just founded. One of the purposes of my visit to Elder Maxon today is to ask him this question. I want to see his answer." Chunyuan said. "What if the answer isn't the one you wanted?" Dance asked. Chunyuan didn't speak, but a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The bird helicopter took off into the sky, and Chunyuan remembered that he hadn't felt the feeling of flying for several months. He is also comparing the bird helicopter with the A-60 Nighthawk helicopter he was familiar with before, and found that the owner of the bird helicopter has a faster speed and a greater carrying capacity, but the hovering performance is not as good as a traditional helicopter. But this is enough. No wonder that in the previous world, the US military wanted to replace traditional helicopters with tilt-rotor aircraft such as the V-22 Osprey. The Asuka helicopter kept climbing, getting closer and closer to the huge Pridewind airship. And at this time, the incomparably huge body of the airship was truly displayed in front of Chunyuan. In front of this giant airship, the flying bird helicopter, about 13 meters long, is just a pocket toy. It has an all-metal structure, and has a huge space, with a length of more than 300 meters. If you compare it with the US-Ford-class aircraft carrier, the largest military equipment in the world before, then the two are about the same size. But don't forget, the Pridewind is flying in the sky. The helicopter continued to climb, and then docked on a mechanical cantilever protruding from the flight deck of the front section of the airship, and the two sets of variable direction propellers were folded. Then the mechanical cantilever led the helicopter up slowly, and was retracted into the hangar on the flight deck. A passage stretched out and connected to the door of the helicopter cabin. Accompanied by Dan S.I., Chunyuan stepped out of the helicopter and came to the flight deck of the airship. All I saw was a majestic black officer in military uniform standing there. Dan S.I. went forward to salute and said, "Captain Kells, the cavalry captain, I was ordered to bring Chunyuan, head of the Volunteer Army Independent Regiment, to negotiate with Elder Maxon." "Thank you, Paladin Dance." The officer named Kells nodded, then turned to look at Chunyuan, and said slowly, "There have been a lot of rumors about you and your volunteer army recently. Elder Maxon seems to value you very much. But what I want to tell you is that there are rules in this world, and it is not like before that you can solve the problem by pulling a group of people to become kings of the mountain. What the Federation really needs is a system. As a leader, I think you should study the relevant things carefully and don't do whatever you want. I hope you can make a correct judgment earlier and return to the life you should have." "Then what kind of life do you think our lives should be?" Chen Yuyan retorted. "This is what you need to learn." Kells continued to speak in that superior tone. "Do you know, Kells, I actually have a good impression of you. Because, as the so-called Tianlong people class unique to the Brotherhood, you are still a person who knows how to pack your own sense of superiority." Chen Yuyan smiled faintly, walked over and patted Kells on the shoulder, as if a leader treats a subordinate. Kells wanted to dodge, but how could his skill stop Chen Yuyan? After patting his shoulder twice like this, Chen Yuyan walked towards the bridge of the airship under the leadership of Paladin Dance. Along the way, there were 4 fully armed Brotherhood of Steel fighters wearing T-60 power armor standing on both sides of the passage. 2 stood at the bridge entrance, and then 4 stood in the corridor after entering the bridge. It can be said that the pass on this road can be said to be heavily guarded. Maxon, on the other hand, was standing in the middle of the panoramic cockpit of the airship bridge. Seeing Chen Yuyan passing by, he nodded his head as a greeting, and said, "Mr. Chen Yuyan, I'm here on a special trip. I think you must have something to say." Chen Yuyan looked around and said with a smile, "I just came here to chat with you. Why is there such a big fight? I heard that you hunted a deathclaw alone when you were 13 years old. If hunting a deathclaw is only within the scope of ordinary people, then what you and Miss Yi have done have surpassed the scope of human beings. As leaders of thousands of Eastern Brotherhood, leader of the warriors, I don't mind showing my fear at this moment to you." Maxon replied proudly. "But you still agree to come to see me in person?" After hearing this, Chen Yuyan had a good impression of Maxon. "Similarly, as the leader of the Brotherhood of Steel in the East, I must come to see you in person." Maxon replied. "Well, if you say it like this, I'm embarrassed to kill you on the spot. Although I was really thinking about this issue just now, the only thing that made me hesitate is that I don't really want to fall from a height of several hundred meters." Chen Yuyan smiled coldly. "Stop talking nonsense, let's get straight to the point. I have to remind you that because of the power you possess, maybe this is the last time we meet alone. So, please carefully consider your words. You came to me, want to say what?" Maxon said. "Before I tell the origin of this trip, I want to ask you a question first." The smile on Chen Yuyan's face faded instantly, and he said slowly, "The class and relationship between the Brotherhood of Steel and the civilians under your rule, in the long run, how do you think it will develop?" All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 376. 370 Mutual Calculation. The Asuka helicopter was flying in the air, and Chen Yuyan sat in the cabin, propping his chin with one hand, and quietly looked out the window. Opposite him, Paladin Dan stared at him intently, with deep worry in his eyes. Chen Yuyan chatted with Maxon for about an hour, and nothing happened after that. They just left peacefully. Dance didn't know what Maxon was going to do, but he could see the raging storm from Chen Yuyan's calm expression. Because he understands Chen Yuyan's thoughts, and also understands the current problems of the Brotherhood of Steel, but he doesn't know if Maxon understands, or if Maxon himself wants to make things develop in that direction. I don't know when the Brotherhood of Steel has changed. Their gazes at the residents began to become indifferent. To them, those residents were just a group of ants, a group of poor wretches. What they pay attention to is only technology, collecting various technologies, and then using these technologies for their own use, and those residents are just tools to help them collect technology. In the eyes of many Brotherhood of Steel members, What they are doing is a handout to those residents. They are helping them by taking technological items. On the premise of helping them, the Brotherhood of Steel will also provide them with protection. What is this not alms? What a great kindness! As for those uneducated wasteland residents, how can they be on an equal footing with our noble Brotherhood of Steel Knights? Dance understands that in the Brotherhood of Steel, there are not a few people who hold this idea. Reese Knight, Paladin Glid, Lancer Captain Kells, they all think so. Only a small number of people suggested that they should be kinder to those residents, and the reason why they raised these views was not out of respect, but out of interest. In the end, the Brotherhood of Steel will undoubtedly become a superior group. They have technology, and plunder all technology, and then make the distance between themselves and the residents bigger and bigger, and even call themselves gods. Their so-called New Order will not appear, and the residents of the wasteland will still live a difficult life. The difference is only from using guns to fight against those mutated wasteland monsters to using sticks, oh, and a time spirit and ill-timed flare gun. Because by that time, it is uncertain whether the elders of the Brotherhood of Steel are still willing to run around for these ants. Dan Si sighed quietly. He had already read the taste of war from Chen Yuyan's expression. It is impossible for Chen Yuyan to sit back and watch such a high-ranking organization form, because this is the biggest threat to the volunteer army. I just don't know how this war between the Brotherhood of Steel and the volunteer army will break out and how it will end. Paladin Dance, I came to see Elder Maxon because we got news that the college might have a large-scale military operation. The volunteer army is not sure to face the college's synthetic human army alone, so we unanimously decided to send troops together, hit the academy. Chen Yuyan suddenly broke the silence and spoke, which startled Dan Si, who was in deep thought. Are you going to send troops together? Dan subconsciously repeated. That's right. The academy's attack target may be Bunker Hill. But it is where one of the largest caravans in the Federation is located, so the situation is more complicated. In this battle, our volunteer army will be responsible for protecting the civilians of Bunker Hill, and the synths in the academy are mainly handed over to the Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel to eliminate them. After the battle, the volunteer army will come forward to push the caravan on Bunker Mountain to accept the protection of the Brotherhood of Steel. Chen Yuyan said flatly. I understand. It is our duty to eliminate the academy. If Elder Maxon asks me to fight, I will do my best to prevent any synthetic man from the academy from setting foot within the range of Bunker Mountain. Dan said seriously. Chen Yuyan nodded, but the corners of his mouth curled up indistinctly. The conversation with Elder Maxon this time was easier than expected. Maxon has unparalleled military and leadership skills, and is also extremely intelligent. But different from his vicissitudes of appearance, he only has 20 years of life experience after all, which is too far behind Chen Yuyan's legendary past life. He first talked to Elder Maxon about his concerns about the superiority of the members of the Brotherhood of Steel over the residents of the wasteland. He acted as if he was completely concerned about the Brotherhood. He gained the trust of Elder Maxon and at the same time learned about his understanding of this matter. View. Later, under Chen Yuyan's ingenious words, Elder Maxon believed that the news that the volunteer army was about to attack Bunbao Mountain was obtained by accident, and Chen Yuyan also proposed that the Brotherhood of Steel would never it will sit back and watch this happen, and there will be tough military intervention. The next thing will come naturally. The Paladin Dance is the best paladin under the Brotherhood of Steel. With a little guidance, Dance will definitely be sent by Maxon to join this military operation. Next, the big drama will be staged when Preston led 100 volunteer soldiers to Bunker Hill, and Chen Yuyan was with him. The volunteer army and the caravan of Bunbao Mountain were originally inextricably linked, and the two parties used to have a cooperative relationship. The caravan of Bunbao Mountain brought supplies to the volunteer army, and the volunteer army provided protection for Bunbao Mountain. But then a series of changes happened to the volunteer army, and it fell apart after the Quincy massacre. After that, the caravan on Bunker Hill was no longer open to the volunteer army. The several caravans in the hands of the volunteer army are basically formed by themselves, and some are small caravans sent by Diamond City and Fanglan Town, which have large-scale caravans. The scale of these caravans is far from that of the one on Bunker Mountain, so the volunteer army's supplies are still a bit tight. Before, if they wanted to transport food to the castle, they had to ask the Brotherhood of Steel for help. It was later learned that Boonbeo Mountain was originally helped by the railway. And their caravans all over the Federation are also the support of the railway's ubiquitous intelligence network. It can be said that due to mutual achievements, the railway and Bunker Mountain have reached their current unprecedented scale. In fact, among the major forces in the Federation, the railway and the volunteer army attach great importance to the construction of caravans, and the Academy also attaches great importance to caravans, and has replaced many members of the caravans with synthetics. For example, the old Hardy who brought Chinhuyan to the Federation at the beginning is one of the synthetics placed in the caravan by the Academy, number T3-63. But only the Brotherhood of Steel is indifferent to the caravan, perhaps because they think it is unnecessary. Preston was talking to the leader of Bunker Hill, Kellers. This was a middle-aged woman who looked very capable, but it was obvious that her attitude towards Preston was somewhat indifferent. It seemed that if it wasn't for Deacon's relationship, she would never have allowed the volunteers to enter Bunker Hill. But after all, the situation is urgent now, and Bunker Mountain is facing the attack of the college. At this time, it must rely on the strength of the volunteer army. Thinking of the three strange-looking but very brand-new tanks that drove over quietly last night, Kellers also understood that he needed to re-evaluate the strength of the volunteer army. Of course, she would never have guessed that this attack of the Academy was caused by Deacon himself. Thanks to book friend 201704011144077734 for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 377. 371 First Lesson from Father. Chinhuyan walked among the crowd, sizing up privately. Bunker Hill is built on a very huge monument, the famous Bunker Hill Monument, which is 67 meters high and is one of Boston's landmark buildings. Although it looks dilapidated now, it has been reinforced many times, and the structure is much stronger than before. Around the monument, a circle of sheds was built. Compared with other places in the Federation, the materials of the sheds here are mostly neater, and the structure looks stronger. And outside the shed, there is a wall as high as 5 or 6 meters. And along the way, you can see a large number of automatic machine gun towers set up around the Bunker Mountain, as well as strong fortifications built with steel structures and concrete blocks. When the troops of the volunteer army entered, Chinhuyan felt at least 20 eyes watching him in the dark. Should it be called Bunker Mountain? It is worthy of being the largest caravan in the Federation. In terms of the construction of surrounding facilities, only Diamond City can match it. However, after all, Diamond City was built on the basis of Fenway Park Stadium, while Bunker Hill has only one monument, and the level of financial resources is also reflected here. Chinhuyan looked around, but Deacon did not appear here. Maybe it was to prevent the people on the railway side from discovering that he was actually planning the invasion of the Academy. But Yi had already arrived. She ran to Chinhuyan, hugged his arm, and whispered in her ear, "Dad, the 3 tanks are already hidden in those houses, and the railway signs are also ready." "Yes. But when we came here, Yi used the magic of detecting life to find a hunter on the outside scouting, and Yi drove the tank in without letting him find out, he. Okay, Yi is the best." Chinhuyan stroked her hair with a smile, and pressed her face against his chest, rubbing against her very comfortably. At this time, Kellers, the leader of Bunker Hill, also came over with Preston. She took the initiative to shake hands with Chinhuyan and said, "Hello, Mr. Chinhuyan. I have also heard about some of your deeds in the volunteer army. Although it is difficult to tell the truth from the fake, I believed it yesterday. Because we have 3 tanks, right?" Chinhuyan said with a smile. "It's really amazing, you know. The volunteer army once let us down very much, but it is because of people like you and Yi that the volunteer army can rise again, which makes me admire." Keller said. "Tell me about the current situation." Chinhuyan didn't want to tell her too much. In this plan, Bunbao Mountain is just a tool. Moreover, they are a group of businessmen, so they don't need to spend too much thought on it. As long as the benefits are in place, she will naturally come running over. Kellers curled his lips and said, "In the past, there were never any problems with the operation of the railway, but who knew that this time, the college caught the tail. Although the wealth in the Bunker Mountain is coveted by many people, we also have one of the best in the Federation. The defensive power is strong, but it is still not enough to resist the Academy's attack." She pointed to the surroundings. "We have set up electromagnetic interference devices, and the college's transmitters cannot locate the inside of the Bunker Mountain. But they can be transmitted to any place around us, and then attack. In other words, every place on the high wall, are likely to be attacked by the Academy's synthetic humans. Can the electromagnetic interference device block the molecular transmission of the Academy?" Chinhuyan wrote down this information, and at the same time cursed secretly in his heart, because Diagon never mentioned this matter to him. He snorted coldly and asked, "How many people do you have?" "There are 60 people in Bunker Mountain equipped with the best weapons we can find. In addition, we have sent the news of our request for help to the railway, but we don't know when their reinforcements will arrive. Instead, it is your volunteer army come faster." Keller said, "I plan to divide our armed forces into 10 groups, and station them in several firepower points preset outside the Bunker Hill. Stop the enemy. If that's the case, we're going to die." Chinhuyan shook his head and said, "If we can't predict the direction of the Academy's attack, then we have to find a way to concentrate their attack. Therefore, we need to abandon the entire outer wall." Keller's face changed drastically. "Abandon the entire outer wall? How is it possible? The surrounding houses are our property. Besides, don't we have tanks? Why are you so cowardly?" Chinhuyan sneered and said, "Attention, it's my tank, not yours. You have no position to let me send the tank out to fight head-to-head with the synths of the Academy. A tank without enough support will easily be destroyed by a tank with enough anti-tank firepower. The infantry group is wiped out. You don't want me to go to the gambling academy without enough firepower? No. I mean. Okay, that's the decision. Abandon the periphery and let the synthetic man from the academy come in to fight?" Chinhuyan waved his hand and made a decision directly. Another day or so passed, and when night fell, among the ruins of the city on the outskirts of Bunker Hill, a white light suddenly flashed, and Knight's figure appeared here. He looked at the dark Bunker Hill monument with a complicated expression, sighed softly, walked forward, and entered the ruins of a building. A synthetic hunter wearing a black leather jacket was already waiting here, and when he saw Knight coming, he nodded at him and said, "I'm hunter number X4-18, and I'm your assistant in this combat operation. I entered the vicinity of Bunker Hill yesterday and started reconnaissance, and Bunker Hill is strengthening its defenses. Because the scope of reconnaissance is too large, I can only make a rough estimate." "How strong is their defense?" Knight asked. "Bunker Hill has about 50 to 80 fighters, and about 400 civilians. As you expected, Bunker Hill got wind of our upcoming attack, so they asked the volunteer army for help, and they dispatched troops from the railway overnight. A group of reinforcements is coming. But the other side's defense is too tight, and I didn't see the scale of the railway's reinforcements clearly. X4-18 said. Then if you add the volunteer army who came over during the day, there are almost 200 guards on Bunker Hill. This defensive force is a bit too strong. Knight said, pretending to be worried. No, this is exactly what the Holy Father expects. Both the railway and the volunteer army have sent a large number of troops here, and we just smashed their vital forces in one fell swoop, so that no one in the entire Federation dares to disobey the Academy. X4-18 said flatly. Knight sighed again in his heart, and said, then prepare to gather troops. Use our most powerful power to shock the entire Federation. Swish. 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 White light kept flickering around, and after each ray of white light dissipated, a fully armed synthetic human soldier would appear here. Surrounded by countless white rays of light, Knight secretly said in his heart, I'm sorry Sean, the cruelty of war is not something you who have stayed in the ivory tower for 200 years can understand. I'm sorry to use this way to come taught you your first lesson from your father. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 378. 372 The battle begins. Swish. 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 Synthetic human soldiers stepped out of the white light one by one. Most of them here are second-generation synthetics. They are stronger, more intelligent, and have relatively complete simulated plastic skins on their bodies. These second-generation synthetics are all wearing combat armor made of alloys, which can effectively resist bullets and energy weapons. And in their hands, all of them are holding laser rifles made by the Academy. Up to now, the weapons used by the Academy's synthetic human troops are basically laser guns made by the Academy, and no other types of weapons have appeared, and they generally do not use weapons from the ground world. There are more and more synthetics around. In just 20 minutes, more than 200 synthetic soldiers have been teleported over and gathered in front of Knight. Immediately afterwards, 4 more huge white lights flashed. When the light dissipated, 4 huge figures stood there impressively. Those are 4 powered armors painted in red and white. Note 1. I only saw this kind of power armor with a short and thick physique, and the head and body were almost integrated. If the head part was not sprayed red, it was almost indistinguishable. And there is no electronic eyepiece on the head, only a few rows of small holes as observation windows. Seeing the appearance of these 4 powered armors, Knight understood that the Academy had really invested a lot of money in order to gain its reputation in this battle. This kind of Academy power armor was not actually developed for combat, it was mainly used to assist high-risk experiments in the Academy. And now, the Academy has equipped these power armors with weapons and sent them out. Knight saw that the Academy laser guns installed on the 4 powered armor arms all had enhanced cooling systems and energy output, and split the laser beams with split prisms, so that they could cover a wider range of advanced Academy scattered lasers. Undoubtedly, this is the Academy's Advanced Weapons Department wanting to test the performance of new weapons. By the way, the first batch of synthetic human troops has been assembled, with a total of 250. The direction of the next troop transmission is up to you, Mr. Knight. The synthetic human hunter X4-18 said to Knight. Knight gritted his teeth suddenly, and instantly cleared up his mood, and his eyes became extremely cold. He turned his head to look at X4-18, and said calmly, transport another 100 synthetic soldiers in the other 3 directions of Bunker Mountain, and we will attack from 4 directions at the same time. X4-18 nodded and agreed without hesitation. Understood, I will contact the Academy immediately. Count down for 120 seconds, and then start attacking. The 4 power armors don't move for the time being, as a backup. Knight continued to order. Yes. X4-18 replied immediately. The Academy's synthetic human troops began to move forward silently. One by one, they walked out of the ruins and moved towards the Bunker Mountain step by step. When entering the range of 200 meters around Bunker Hill, I only saw the searchlight on the Bunker Hill monument in the middle of Bunker Hill immediately shining here, and at the same time, the siren sounded. The whole army charge. Knight ordered. He got into the T-51B power armor he had obtained before, and commanded the synthetic human troops to advance. This power armor has also been painted in a white Academy style, with an Academy logo on its chest. Hundreds of synthetics immediately speeded up, and at the same time, caravan snipers also opened fire on the sentry towers and brackets built on the Bunker Hill monument. Bang 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 gunshots sounded, and immediately several synthetic humans were knocked down to the ground, and parts were scattered everywhere. Whoosh! The synthetic man immediately fought back, and the light blue laser beam kept flickering, and every time the laser was irradiated for a short time, it left a red-hot mark on those iron frames. Soon the several snipers on the monument fled in a panic under the intensive laser shooting. They were shot several times. If the power of the laser guns had not dropped sharply at this distance, they might have been burned to coke. The brief exchange of fire kicked off the prelude to the entire Battle of Bunker Hill. Only the soldiers of the Volunteer Army, Caravan, and Railway Alliance Army hidden in the fire power points of the Bunker Mountain began to shoot. Countless bullets were fired towards the synthetics of the Academy, knocking down more than a dozen synthetics. But then the counterattack of the synths came. Some synths rushing forward threw plasma grenades at a distance of 100 meters. Groups of explosions exploded on the outer wall of the Bunker Mountain. At the same time, more light blue the laser covered the past like a net of death. The Bunker Hill Monument was originally a park, but many buildings were built later. After the war, some of these buildings were used by the caravans of Bunker Hill as housing, but more buildings around the perimeter continued to be abandoned. But now, these abandoned buildings have become the best bunkers for the Academy's synthetic soldiers to attack. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. The coalition soldiers hid behind the bunkers and fired desperately. Machine guns are still rare in this world, so most of the soldiers use assault rifles and laser guns. There are not many homemade guns. Reflects. Although the firepower they fired was huge, it had little effect. The sprinting speed of the Academy synthetic man was getting faster and faster, and he was already less than 100 meters away from the outer wall. Starting at this distance, the power of the laser gun begins to manifest itself. Kill. A caravan soldier held an M60 light machine gun in his hand, and he shot wildly at the outside of the firing hole with red eyes. Although the Bunker Mountain caravan cannot guarantee enough high-quality firearms, the bullets are definitely enough. This burst of violent machine gun fire directly split the synthetics in front in two, but the synthetics behind immediately dodged and hid in the ruins of the nearby houses, and the machine gun bullets hit the house with rubble. Immediately afterwards, a dense burst of light blue lasers shot over from the opposite side. The caravan machine gunner only saw countless light blue light beams in front of him dazzled his eyes, and then only heard a whoosh. A laser hit his eyes accurately. The machine gunner fell down at the sound, and after a convulsion on the ground, he didn't move, only to see a scorched black hole in his left eye, and a burning smell came out. The soldiers next to him hurried over to take over the M60 machine gun and continued to shoot. After firing hundreds of bullets, the barrel began to glow red, and the machine gunner hurriedly took the machine gun back, wrapped the barrel with a cloth, removed it, and replaced it with a spare barrel. However, when he returned to the shooting hole, all he could see was densely packed synthetic human soldiers. Boom! A synthetic human rushed forward and grabbed the embrasure, its expressionless, indifferent plastic face turned to stare squarely at the heavy gunner. Wow! Wow! The machine gunner suddenly panicked, picked up the machine gun and fired indiscriminately. Da-da-da-da. Flames spewed out from the muzzle of the gun, and the synthetic man was instantly shattered into pieces by bullets, and countless parts scattered down. But then more synthetics rushed up, countless light blue lasers hit the machine gunner, and he was burned by the lasers into a scorched black corpse within a few seconds. Synthetic troops swarmed in. They stepped on the ruins of this firepower point, climbing up the wall like ants. Note 1, this kind of Academy-specific power armor only exists in the Fallout 4 setting set, and it is not installed in the game. The only Academy power armor is the white-painted X-01. Thank you for the 1000 starting coins rewarded by Star Sea Rangers. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 379. 373 Battle of Bunker Mountain, Part 1. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. The sound of gunfire continued to ring out around Bunker Mountain, countless bullets and lasers pierced the night sky and intertwined, and synths were constantly shot and fell to the ground. But the tide of synths still rushed to the front of the wall and began to climb the wall. The Bunker Mountain caravan only deployed a small number of soldiers in the preset fortifications, and the density of firepower was limited. However, under Knight's deployment, the Academy's synthetic human army invested more than 500 synthetic humans in the first wave of attack. They attacked from 4 directions at the same time, and after being attacked by firepower, they began to spread out towards the surroundings. When they rushed all the way under the wall, they had formed 4 huge attack fans. Under such circumstances, it is impossible to defend such a long front with the defense force of less than 200 people on the coalition side. I only saw synthetic human soldiers start to climb the fence. Unless the synthetic human of the Academy is a specially made hunter, their physical ability is only less than twice that of ordinary people, but they have one of the biggest advantages almost no will be exhausted. They are constantly climbing up against the firepower of the defenders. The 5-6 meter high wall is definitely a great test for ordinary people, but it is nothing for synthetics. Now the main resistance on the outskirts is the soldiers left by the leader of the Bunker Mountain caravan, Kales. They were quickly defeated in the face of the almost ubiquitous offensive of the synths. More than 50 soldiers were able to escape back to the monument on the other side alive. Less than 20 people. Seeing the scene at the temporary outpost in the middle of the monument, Kellers looked a little unhappy. She looked at Chunyuan and said, "It is because of your stupid persistence that we missed a chance to defeat the Academy. If we can invest more power in the fortifications, and it is impossible for the Academy to attack." Chunyuan just looked at Kellers like an idiot. He didn't want to talk to her at first, but seeing Preston kept giving him winks, he had no choice but to reply, "Although they rely on solid fortifications, at least hundreds of synths have been killed, but this exchange ratio is meaningless. Because synths are consumables, countless ones can be produced by pressing a button. But can humans? But if we stick to the outer fortifications, we can at least kill thousands of synthetic humans." Kellers was still arguing. "And then? Kill thousands of synthetic humans, and then how many people are left in our total military force of about 200 people? 100? Let's count it as 100 people left. How much strength do these remaining people have left? At this time, if the Academy sends more synthetic humans, then the exchange ratio will be reversed at that time. Don't you know such a simple truth?" Chunyuan continued to care for the mentally retarded. "Ahem, you can't say that, Boss Yan. After all, Kellers is the leader of the largest caravan in the Federation. Her thinking direction is different from ours." Preston hurried over to smooth things over. "Then shut up and let Dad help you solve this problem," Yi said coldly beside him. Kellers lost face. Her face was a bit ugly, but she is not feeling well now. She just turned her head to look at the battlefield outside. Only the hundreds of synthetic human soldiers had begun to climb over the wall and enter the interior of the bunker hill. A large number of automatic machine gun towers installed on the roof began to function, and a burst of violent shooting killed dozens of synthetic humans. After finding the machine gun turrets that fired, the synthetic human troops fought back more violently, and the machine gun turrets were destroyed one by one. More and more synths entered the city, and now only the soldiers still guarding the monument in the middle were firing, but they were quickly suppressed by dense light blue laser beams. Synthetics like a tide began to attack the core of Bunker Hill, the Bunker Hill Monument. At the same time, at the Boston airport in the distance, hundreds of Brotherhood of Steel wearing power armor are gathering, and 20 Bird helicopters are parked in front of them. The engines of these helicopters have been started, the propellers are spinning rapidly, and there are bursts of roaring sounds as they slap the air. With such a huge battle, all the other forces around that have not been cleared by the Brotherhood of Steel are silent, and they dare not even vent their spirits. Elder Maxon brought the members of the main combat troops of the Brotherhood of Steel, such as Paladin Dance and Paladin Glid, here. Behind them, there are 10 warriors wearing power armor painted in different colors. These are the oldest and most powerful Starlight Paladins in the Brotherhood of Steel. Looking at the Bunker Mountain, which was already in flames, a sneer appeared on the corner of Elder Maxon's mouth. He waved his hand and said, "It's almost there, the Bunker Mountain is indeed at war. Everyone board the plane immediately and prepare for the final battle." 20 Asuka helicopters soared into the sky and flew in the direction of Bunker Mountain. In the dark downtown Boston, Bunker Hill covered by war is as conspicuous as a lighthouse in the dark. After flying near the Bunker Hill, Maxon looked down at the battlefield from a high position and said loudly, "Don't land yet. Just hover at an altitude of 1,000 meters. Observe the situation on the battlefield." As he spoke, he took out his binoculars and looked at the battlefield, only to see that the surrounding wall of Bunker Mountain was in a mess everywhere, and the wreckage of a large number of synthetic humans was mixed with the corpses of some Bunker Mountain caravan soldiers lying outside in disorder. Many places inside Bunker Mountain have also been controlled by synthetics. These synthetic humans obviously came with the order to destroy everything, destroying all the houses where they passed, and setting them on fire. From Maxon's point of view, the volunteer army did not defend the Bunker Hill, but instead was suppressed in the last position and lingered. It seems that we are wrong to expect the peasants of the volunteer army. It is a great waste to leave advanced weapons and equipment in their hands. Paladin Glade said coldly, "Elder, these synthesizers sent by the Academy people are just a pile of rubbish, just let us wipe out the Academy and the volunteer army." Elder Maxon shook his head and said, "Wait a minute, the volunteer army hasn't shown its true strength yet. Let them and the Academy synthesizers consume each other for a while." Paladin Dance kept staring at the battlefield. After watching for a while, he pointed to the battlefield and said, "It seems that the volunteer army is planning to shrink the front line and rely on the Bunker Hill Monument to fight the Academy." Maxon looked at the battlefield, and he also noticed that when 4,500 synthetic human soldiers rushed into the inside of the Bunker Hill and headed towards the monument, the formation inevitably crowded. And as they get deeper and deeper, there are fewer and fewer passages that can travel, and many synthetics are even directly blocked outside. A somewhat ferocious smile appeared on his scarred face. "It's interesting, Chunyuyan. Guarding the Bunker Hill Monument limits the attack direction of the Academy's synths. In a narrow environment, if the number advantage of the Academy's synthets can't be brought into play, then they can hold off for a long time with fewer but more elite soldiers. It seems that he is trying to win a chance for me. Then shall we attack now?" Paladin Dance asked. "No, wait a minute. Chunyuyan is not such a simple person," Elder Maxon said indifferently. "Thank you for the 1,000 starting coins rewarded by Star Sea Rangers. Thanks to the book friend 16030709500110 for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 380. 374 Battle of Bunker Mountain, 2. The roar of 20 bird helicopters in the sky was so loud that it almost resounded through the sky, and everyone around Bunbeo Mountain could hear it clearly. Looking up, although the helicopter hidden in the night sky could not be seen, the roar reminded everyone all the time. In this wasteland, there is only one existence that can cause such movement. The Brotherhood of Steel. The Brotherhood of Steel is here. Kellers looked at the dark sky and exclaimed loudly, "Why did they come here? Interfere in the matter of Bunker Hill?" She was not at all happy about the arrival of reinforcements. On the contrary, her heart kept sinking. The involvement of the Brotherhood of Steel is not a good thing. As the saying goes, it is easier to invite gods than to give them away, not to mention that they came uninvited. Undoubtedly, even if they can repel the Academy's attack, the Brotherhood of Steel will never let Bunker Mountain, the largest caravan in the Federation, slip away from them. Looks like it is. The Brotherhood of Steel will not sit idly by when the college is making such a big fuss here. What's more, with this excuse, they can just take Bunbeo Mountain into their pocket. Chen Yuyan said flatly. Bastard! Don't let them come over. Where's your tank? Where's the tank? Let the tank attack. Get the synths out of the academy. Then the Brotherhood of Steel will have no excuse to come over. Kelly said loudly. We haven't even survived the Academy's first wave of offensive, are we going to show our last hole card? Chen Yuyan said coldly. The Academy's first wave of offensive? Kellers was stunned. Chen Yuyan didn't pay attention to her at this time, and said loudly to the coalition soldiers behind, the synthetic man is about to rush to the memorial hall. Prepare to fight. Kill. The soldiers of the volunteer army and the soldiers of the railway roared wildly. However, the soldiers of the Bunker Mountain caravan were a little bit cowering. The tide of synthetic human troops had already frightened them out of their wits. Seeing the appearance of those people, Chen Yuyan sneered and said, "This is a battle of life and death. Those who do not flinch will be shot on the spot. You guys." Why, a caravan soldier fought against the epidemic loudly, but before he finished speaking, his head exploded like a watermelon in the next second, and bright red blood and gray brains splashed on the surrounding area. People are everywhere. The one who fired the shot was a soldier of the volunteer army. No, it's a soldier from the Independence Regiment of the volunteer army. Holding the pistol that was still smoking, he shouted with fanaticism, "Boss Yan is right. Those who do not flinch will be shot on the spot." Ha 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 ha. Those caravan fighters all showed fear, but they couldn't help it. Surrounded by volunteers and railway soldiers, they also began to enter the defensive positions in the memorial hall. Kellers looked at Chen Yuyan and Yi with a gloomy expression. She finally found out that the Brotherhood of Steel really wasn't something she needed to worry about. Because the god who won't leave is actually beside me. The core of Bunker Hill, at the bottom of the Bunker Hill Monument, is a pre-war American Revolutionary War memorial. This place, which should have been very historic, is now surrounded by heavy sandbags and barbed wire. Hundreds of coalition soldiers from volunteer troops, caravans, and railways are waiting in battle among the fire power points carefully set up in the memorial hall. These fire power points cross each other. No matter which direction you attack from, you will be attacked from several directions at the same time. And under the heavy protection of the defense line of the memorial hall, a passage leading to the underground is set up in a hidden place in the memorial hall. Go underground through the passage. A huge underground base is the real headquarters of the Bunker Mountain caravan. Synthetic soldiers have already started to charge towards the memorial hall. Countless light blue laser beams continuously irradiated on the outer wall of the memorial hall, and several plasma grenades exploded. However, the memorial hall has been reinforced by the Bunker Mountain caravan over the years, and this level of firepower is not enough to shake it. There are actually not many heavy weapons in the entire wasteland world, and this is also because there is very little demand. Especially for the Academy, the synth soldiers are almost all Academy laser rifles, and almost no other weapons appear. One can imagine the difficulty of relying on this kind of weapon to fight tough battles. In the past, the Academy could also use molecular teleportation to directly teleport to the inside of the target to shoot face to face, but facing the bunker mountain, which they are very familiar with and well prepared for, the only way is to break through head-on. Synthetic soldiers have already rushed near the memorial hall. Fire! With an order, gunshots sounded, and the powerful firepower that was several times fiercer than before poured out immediately. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Countless bullets were fired non-stop, smashing the first few synthetic human soldiers into pieces. Gunshots kept ringing, and almost every gunshot caused a synthetic human soldier to fall. There are only 2 roads leading to the memorial hall, front and back, and hundreds of synthetic human soldiers can only be crowded on the road, suppressed by the firepower of the coalition forces and unable to advance an inch. The scene once turned into a meaningless air-to-air shootout, but under Knight's command, the synthetic human soldiers began to advance bravely again. Whoosh! Synthetic soldiers bolted forward while firing guns. The bullet from the opposite side shot at the head and face, and the synthetic human soldier was shot in the face. A large piece of the simulated skin was torn apart, and even an electronic eye was crushed, and it was hung on the face by several wires. But it still didn't stop moving forward, it was still charging forward while shooting. Under the rain of bullets, one of its arms was also broken by bullets, and the Academy laser rifle in its hand flew out. It took out the pistol and continued to shoot, moving forward. Immediately afterwards, the hand holding the pistol was also shot away. Then one foot was broken in its entirety. The synthetic human soldier fell to the ground, still crawling forward with only one hand. The artificial skin on its face showed no expression, it just stared at the direction of the memorial hall. Immediately afterwards, there was a click, and the synthetic human soldier who rushed up from behind stepped on its head and charged forward. The synthetic human's head was crushed immediately, and the electronic eyes rolled on the ground several times. In the reflection of the electronic eyes, one can see one after another of the synths rushing forward one after another, and then they were smashed into parts by countless bullets and scattered on the ground. After a few more seconds, the light in the electronic eyes gradually went out. At this time, the synthetic human troops had rushed into the memorial hall with a huge advantage in numbers, and the battle became more and more intense. Facing those indifferent and ruthless synthetic human soldiers, even the caravan soldiers who were a little shy before felt the threat of death. In front of synthetics, it is useless to surrender, and it is useless to beg for mercy. As long as they are ordered to kill, then no one will be left alive. Kill! All the soldiers were red-eyed, and they wouldn't let go after pulling the trigger, and they would only think of changing the magazine when the gun clicked. A few miscellaneous power armors that were extremely rare in the coalition army also joined the battle, and these power armors immediately played a huge role. They stood on the battlefield like the mainstay, facing the firepower of the synths, holding Gatling machine guns and shooting crazily. Hey! A series of gunshots rang out, and there were only countless fragments where the bullet rain passed. On the outskirts of Bunker Hill, Knight watched the development of the battle with a blank expression. He turned his head and said to X4-18, "Continue to increase the number of synths. Send another batch. Put the power armor into battle. Need to teleport eradicator units?" X4-18 asked. "No, Bunker Hill is nothing to worry about, but the Brotherhood of Steel has arrived, and the Eradicator troops need to be kept to deal with them," Knight said, looking up at the sky where the engine was roaring. "Yes." X4-18 responded and waved his hand, and the 4 college power armors began to walk towards the bunker mountain with heavy steps. With a bang, they violently smashed through the outer wall of the bunker mountain and rushed into the interior. These 4 power armors rushed over like humanoid tanks. The coalition soldiers inside the memorial hall saw these distinctive behemoths, and immediately turned their guns and shot at them. but the bullets hit these powered armors as if they were scratching the surface, causing no damage at all except scratching some paint. Even a burst of las gunfire is hardly effective. However, the scattered lasers equipped on the Academy's power armor kept shooting, and the powerful scattered lasers could cover a large area with one blow, immediately suppressing the soldiers of the coalition forces so that they couldn't lift their heads. Taking advantage of this opportunity, more and more synthetic human soldiers rushed into the memorial hall, suppressing the coalition soldiers back again and again. Phew, boom. 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 Several rockets shot straight over with their tail flames, and exploded on the Academy's power armor. The huge explosion shockwave even destroyed many synthetic human soldiers around. Under the continuous firing of rockets, a piece of Academy power armor was immediately blown out of shape, the outer armor was pierced by the metal jet, and the synthetic man and electronic components inside were instantly destroyed. Another Academy-powered armor was finally deformed and peeled off by countless laser beams and bullets, and then exploded into parts after a violent explosion. At the same time, in the sky, Paladin Danz looked at the battlefield on Bunker Hill with some concern, and said, "Elder, if you continue to stand on the sidelines like this, it is against our night code. When the federal residents were besieged by the Academy synthetics, when the time comes, our Brotherhood of Steel shouldn't sit idly by like this. I request to fight alone." Elder Maxon smiled and said, "I respect your courage and personality very much, Paladin Danz. But this is also the reason why I am the Great Elder. I have to think more. But the battle situation is enough now, Academy. The number of synthetic human troops is still increasing, and it's time for us to officially join the battle." After finishing speaking, he waved his hand violently and said loudly, "All planes descend immediately. The whole army is ready to fight." The 20 Asuka helicopters responded immediately, and they began to descend rapidly. However, he did not land rashly over the battlefield, but descended at a distance of 200 meters from the bunker mountain. The helicopters are divided into 4 groups, each with 5 helicopters. First, the helicopters of one of the groups begin to lower the altitude, while the other helicopters hover in the air. The machine guns started to fire, and the synthetic human army that was condescending and facing the direction of the bunker mountain was covered by a burst of firepower. The countless bullets were not accurate, but the intensive firepower still destroyed more than a dozen synthetics. The Academy also responded, and synthetic human soldiers began to rush towards the side. Taking advantage of this opportunity, one of the group's Asuka helicopters descended to an ultra-low altitude of more than 20 meters, and then the soldiers of the Brotherhood of Steel in power armor jumped straight down. The excellent shock absorption system of the T-60 power armor minimized the damage, and the Knights of the Brotherhood immediately began to establish landing positions after landing. The bird helicopter team that put down all the Knights immediately started to climb again. This time they flew directly towards the direction of the bunker mountain, facing the synthetic human soldiers over there with a burst of fierce close-range fire coverage. The firepower that fell from the sky killed and wounded the synthetic soldiers in pieces. At this time, the bird helicopters of several other groups also began to repeat the duties of covering, landing, and fire support, sending more than 100 Brotherhood of Steel Knights to the ground in batches, and then began to bombard Bunker Mountain indiscriminately. The Brotherhood of Steel's airstrikes didn't even care about accidentally injuring the coalition forces, and the Asuka helicopters continued to fire with the firepower of their cannons in the air more than 50 meters away. Even the Bunker Hill monument was riddled with holes, and several caravan soldiers were also killed in airstrikes. The Academy synths who were under attack also reacted immediately. Knight issued an order to suspend the attack on the memorial hall by the synth troops. After leaving some synths to suppress the coalition forces, the other synths immediately counterattacked the Brotherhood of Steel with all their strength. But even so, the situation on the battlefield turned into a one-sided situation in an instant. Although the 20 Asuka helicopters only had 20mm cannons and an external Gatling machine gun as offensive firepower, their condescending firepower was still insane. Countless bullets fell from the sky, and the Academy's synthetic human troops were beaten to pieces, making it almost impossible to organize an effective counterattack. What's even more frightening is that a few minutes later, a wall of steel appeared in front of them. That's a full 130 Brotherhood of Steel Knights in T-60 power armor. In the previous battle, a small amount of power armor on the coalition side stabilized their line of defense, while the Academy quickly reversed the situation with 4 power armors, almost breaking through the defense of the Memorial Hall. These are only single-digit power armors, but now there are more than 100 power armors in front of them. In the smoke of the battlefield, the yellow light on the electronic eyepiece of the T-60 power armor is particularly prominent, followed by an unimaginably powerful and destructive firepower. In the front row, 10-star paladins hold special laser Gatlings in their hands. This multi-tube laser gun is constantly rotating, cooling, and firing, and can emit countless red laser beams with destructive power in an instant. The Academy synths on the opposite side were wiped out row by row like mowing grass. The Brotherhood of Steel, just like their name, is a completely irresistible torrent of steel. Da-da-da-da. Countless red laser beams appear on the battlefield, tearing everything apart and destroying everything. In contrast, the Academy's unique light blue laser beams are getting less and less, and they have no resistance at all. And at this moment, Knight, who was hiding behind, clenched his teeth and shouted loudly, "Send the Eradicator Note 1 troops immediately. Surround them." Note 1, to put it simply, it is a legendary synthesizer. Eradicator is the most advanced suffix for Academy synths in the game. Thank you for the 10,000 starting coins rewarded by Shiliang. Thank you for the 500 starting coins rewarded in Shangji Lian 6. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 381. 375 Battle of Bunker Mountain, Part 2. Transmit the Eradicator troops immediately. Knight ordered, and X4-18 next to him immediately sent a signal to the Academy. The Brotherhood of Steel people carry electromagnetic interference devices, we can't teleport directly into their formation, X4-18 said. Then teleport around them. Surround them. Today, I'm going to make the Brotherhood of Steel disappear from this federal wasteland. Knight said sharply, his expression and tone, no matter how you look at it, it looks like it's the same as the Brotherhood of Steel. Understood. X4-18 conveyed Knight's order. I only saw a few swishing sounds, and at a distance of more than 50 meters from the Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel, white rays of light began to appear. When the light dissipated, a large number of synthetic human soldiers appeared here. But these synth soldiers look a little different from other synths. Most of them are still second-generation synthetic humans, but they wear alloy armor that protects most of their bodies, and they hold more advanced and powerful Academy laser rifles. And more importantly, these synths did not charge foolishly after teleporting over, but immediately sought cover for cover, and then before the Brotherhood of Steel Knights could react, they first threw a large number of plasma grenades. Boom! 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 A large number of grenades exploded, and blue plasma flew in all directions. When it touched the Brotherhood Knights' power armor, it immediately burned a large piece. Eradicator Squad. The most elite unit among synths. The synths in this army have survived more than 10 battles, and have developed the ability to learn, and become more powerful synths after learning experience. And the Academy also provided these synthetic humans with bodies with higher strength and higher output power. Therefore, if the Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel are all veterans of many battles, the Eradicators of the Academy are also elite troops. The white light continued to flicker, and the synth troop of the Academy was teleported around the Brotherhood of Steel. Moreover, the Academy has obviously spent a lot of money for this battle, and this wave of teleportation is more than 300 synthetics. The light blue laser and the bright red laser are mixed together, which is dazzling. If it weren't for the electronic eyepiece-assisted aiming with power armor, or the light noise reduction system of the synthetic human electronic eye, ordinary people would not be able to see anything clearly on this battlefield. The appearance of the Eradicator troops immediately put tremendous pressure on the invincible Brotherhood of Steel Knights. They began to shrink their formation and entered the ruins of the surrounding houses as a cover to deal with the synths rushing from all directions. And the 20 flying bird helicopters in the sky also fired devastating firepower at the synthetic human Eradicator troops on the ground. However, the Eradicator troops are no better than ordinary synths. They know how to use the surrounding terrain reasonably, and the high-power laser rifles in their hands are also enough to pose a threat to the bird helicopters. The bird helicopter hovered in the air, one side of the hatch was opened, and an M-134 six-barreled 7.62mm Gatling machine gun was mounted on the door. A fraternity attendant grabbed the machine gun and pointed it at the ground. It was a burst of madness strafing. And the light blue laser beam emitted from the ground also enveloped it like a net. The machine gunner without any defense was shot by a laser beam, and he fell from the sky screaming. Hearing the movement on the hatch surface, the helicopter pilot also hurriedly adjusted the direction of the propeller to climb, but it was a step too late. The dense laser beams irradiated the helicopter, and the bottom armor of the helicopter was burned red, and the electronic components inside were also burned. There was a bang from the engine, thick smoke billowed out, and the out-of-control helicopter fell from the sky in a circle. Continue to send the synth troops. Shoot down the Brotherhood of Steel's plane first. Knight said loudly. There are not many synthesizers in the Academy's inventory. Are you sure you want to continue the teleportation? X4-18 finally raised an objection. Don't question my decision. Before your Holy Father was born, I have fought against the brutal Yan army on the battlefield of Anchorage for 5 years. In this wasteland, no one knows war better than me. Knight said with a cold face, now we must increase our strength. If the Brotherhood of Steel continues to control the air, let alone inventory, we will all die here. Yes. X4-18 immediately began to execute Knight's instructions. Swish. 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 More synth soldiers were teleported over, and these synth soldiers were just ordinary synths, and under the cover of the Eradicator troops, they began to fire wildly at the Asuka helicopters in the sky. More and more synthetic human troops began to put tremendous pressure on the Brotherhood of Steel, and Brotherhood Knights had begun to die in battle, but they were fearless and still fighting desperately. Invincible. The Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel shouted slogans, fearlessly launching wave after wave of attacks towards the synthetic human army that surrounded them. On the Brotherhood's front, a relatively intact building was used as their temporary command post. Elder Maxon was wearing a special T-60 power armor specially made for elders. He took off his helmet and was discussing the battlefield situation with several captains around him. Elder, it's not a good thing for us to be in such a stalemate now. Many knights have exhausted their physical strength. We need to break through. Paladin Glade said with a serious face. No. Our goal is always Bunker Mountain. The iron hooves of the Brotherhood of Steel will definitely step into the territory of Bunker Mountain. Bring the largest caravan in the Federation under our control. Maxon said sharply. But there are too many synthetics, and the ammunition stock of the bird helicopter is not much. If we lose the air support, our situation will be very bad. Paladin Glade said. Dance. Immediately contact the volunteer army and tell them that they must cooperate with us to launch a counterattack. Otherwise, their behavior of sitting on the mountain and watching tigers fight will be regarded as hostile by our Brotherhood of Steel. Glid, you lead a small team to break through on the west side and attract the attention of the synthetic man. Elder Maxon said loudly. Yes. Paladin Glade immediately stood at attention, hammered his right fist on the chest, and said loudly, "Invincible. Brothers of Steel will let us help them break through." Chunyuan had a sneering smile on his lips. "They have a good plan, let us help them break through the siege, and then they can attack the bunker mountain, he 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 he." "You mean, the Brotherhood of Steel will attack Bunker Hill? Against the railroad and the Zouaves?" Preston said, frowning. "Why not? From their point of view, we should have been maimed by the Academy's synthetic man. If we don't take advantage of the momentum to take over Bunker Mountain, when will we wait? If they refuse their request at this time, then they will undoubtedly sue immediately all armed forces." Chunyuan said. "Then we continue to stand still? Anyway, there are not many synths who are still attacking Bunker Mountain, and we are not under great pressure." Kelly said. "If that's the case, wouldn't our position become just to sit back and watch the college massacre the Brotherhood of Steel, and instead help the evildoers? Therefore, we still have to fight back, and we have to fight back very resolutely, pushing the front line far away from the Bunker Mountain. Then I'll see if the Brotherhood of Steel can pull off their face and attack us." After Chunyuan finished speaking, he waved his hand and said loudly, "The tick tank is dispatched. Everyone rush out with me." Among the buildings on Bunker Hill, there are still hundreds of synthetic human soldiers shooting towards the Memorial Hall. But because the college's main energy is now on the Brotherhood of Steel, the synthetic human soldiers here are only firing and suppressing, and have no intention of rushing in. However, at this moment, a nearby building suddenly exploded, and then an armored monster rushed out roaring. In front of this armored monster, there was a pair of extremely sharp alloy giant pincers, which flipped rapidly while rushing, smashing all the synthetic soldiers they passed by. 3 tick tanks rushed out from 3 directions. Almost at the moment of rushing out, the 90mm caliber rapid-fire gun and the 7.62mm caliber 6-barreled Getter machine gun on the small front turret opened fire crazily. The synthetic human soldiers who were concentrating on suppressing the firepower at the Memorial Hall were crushed before they had time to react. A school power armor turned around and shot fiercely at the rushing tank, but the scattered laser equipped on it could not penetrate the thick armor of the tank at all. Tanks, once known as the Lord of War, have disappeared in this world for so long that people have forgotten how scary tanks are and how to deal with tanks, not to mention the weapons that can effectively destroy tanks. The tick tank fired a shot that missed the Academy power armor, and the gate machine gun was at a dead angle, so the tank rammed straight into it. A tank of more than 40 tons knocked the Academy's power armor into the air almost instantly. If the tank chassis was not too low, it would have run over it directly. However, the alloy claws equipped for digging in front of the tank rotated rapidly, and there was a tooth-piercing sound of metal friction. The Academy's power armor was actually torn apart by the alloy claws. Immediately afterwards, soldiers from the Volunteer Army, Railway, and Caravan rushed out of the Memorial Hall roaring, and launched an assault on the synthetic human soldiers' defense line. The synthetic human defense line that was smashed to pieces by 3 tanks collapsed almost instantly, and more than 100 synthetic human soldiers who entered the inside of the Bunker Mountain were all wiped out in a short time. Without any pause, the coalition forces rushed out with 3 tick tanks as the lead. Almost at the same time, Knight received a report. He knew the existence of tanks, but now he yelled very cooperatively, "What are you talking about? Tanks? Why are there tanks on the railway?" Yes, according to the information sent back by the destroyed synthetic human troops on the front line, there are indeed 3 tanks in the Bunker Hill. Now the defense line over there has been breached, and the Eradicator troops will soon be attacked by the enemy. X4-18 said. Knight's face darkened, and he asked, "What about the Brotherhood of Steel?" "They are holding their position firmly, because they have too much power armor, and the Eradicator troops can't move forward. In addition, they are breaking out to the west, and they should want to escape." X4-18 replied. It is impossible for the Brotherhood of Steel to retreat, so ignore the breakout team. We have also begun to shrink the front line, and we cannot face the enemy. In addition, report the battle situation to the senior management of the college. The situation is not good now, so ask whether to retreat. Knight said. He said so, but in fact he knew very well that it was impossible for the academy to retreat. Send back all the nearly 1,000 synthetics here? The senior management of the college would never accept this option of returning home with feathers, because it would mean the complete failure of this operation, and the college would lose face. Sure enough, X4-18 was silent for a while and then said, "The senior management of the college refuses to retreat. They demand that you must achieve the combat goal, recover the 4 synthetic humans hidden by the railway in the Bunker Mountain, and try to eliminate the vital forces of the railway and the Brotherhood of Steel. In this case, continue to fight. Don't block the army on Bunker Hill, let them go, we will continue to shrink the front line." Knight said. "Why not stop the Bunker Hill army?" X4-18 asked. "They have tanks. After the Brotherhood of Steel sees the tanks, they will definitely not sit idly by." Knight said. "Hey boom. Boom. Tick tanks rampage across the battlefield like mech monsters, unstoppable from their turret-mounted gatters and rapid-fire cannons. It's obviously just a heavy tank, but in this apocalyptic world, it's actually playing like a super heavy tank. The synths of the academy didn't do much to block the 3 tanks. They seemed to be discouraged, and they bypassed the tanks and began to gather towards the east side of the battlefield. The number of synth troops is extremely large, there are almost 1,000 synths. They take the Eradicator troops as the forerunner to maintain the suppression of the Brotherhood of Steel's firepower, and at the same time they have established a very strong position on the east side of the battlefield. On the other side, the team led by Paladin Glade broke through the already weak defense of the synthetic man in this direction. However, the 3 tanks oncoming made his face change drastically. Tanks? How is this possible? Why are there tanks on Bunker Hill? Glad shouted. If they have tanks, they must report to Elder Maxon as soon as possible, said a knight behind him. Glid looked at the 3 slowly stopped tanks, his face darkened. This group of mud-legged people. Are they challenging the bottom line of our Brotherhood of Steel? At this time, the infantry from the rear coalition army also followed up, and they ignored the Brotherhood of Steel, and just said to themselves, "Set up a position right here. No one can cross." This sentence was obviously meant for the Brotherhood of Steel, and Glid's face became increasingly ugly. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 382. 376, Fleeing. The tough attitude of the coalition forces on Bunker Mountain made Paladin Glade's face darken. In his opinion, the mudlegs on Bunker Mountain are completely arrogant, and they don't take their Brotherhood of Steel seriously at all. At this moment, the engines of the 3 tanks suddenly increased their horsepower, and the suspension system began to lean forward, and the mechanical claws in front of the tanks spun rapidly. There was a rattling sound, and a hole was quickly dug out by the alloy claws on the ground. The front end of the tank sank into the pothole, and the whole tank stood up. Then the tank turret began to turn backwards and move to the tilted tail of the tank. The armor buried in the ground at the front of the tank rose up, forming a double layer of armor on the erected front of the tank. As the armor plate rises, a very obvious white lantern mark appears below the armor plate. Glid looked at the tank, his face felt as if he had been hit by someone, it was burning hot. At this time, seeing the sign of the lantern, his tone became extremely gloomy. "Railway, what are you trying to do? You drove out the tanks to make the world once again shrouded in the threat of technology. The leader here happens to be a heavy gunner of the railway, which is also the name for elite fighters in the railway organization. He was wearing a windbreaker, a red scarf, and a body armor inside, holding a gauze rifle and a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth. This heavy gunner is not a fuel-efficient lamp, and they also have no good impressions of the Brotherhood of Steel. They glanced at Glid and said coldly, "Look at the power armor on you, I think this world has been shrouded in technology. Under threat. Don't compare our Brotherhood of Steel with you bastards. You don't deserve technology." Paladin Glade said with a grim expression. The heavy gunner also grinned grinningly, "I want to see how unfit we are." As soon as the words fell, the railway soldiers behind him immediately raised their weapons and pointed at Glade. The knights on the Brotherhood of Steel side did not show any weakness, and also picked up their weapons and pointed them here. They hold Gatling machine guns and laser Gatlings in their hands, which are much better than the coalition forces in terms of the quality of weapons. However, there was a sound of a motor, and the turret of the Tic tank that had entered the turret mode began to rotate, and the black muzzles of the 90mm rapid-fire gun and the 6-barreled Getter machine gun were coldly pointed at the Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel. Paladin Glade immediately raised his hand, signaling the knight behind him to put down his gun. He stared at the heavy gunner, and said in a dark tone, "I hope you don't regret it." Iron Road. Elder Maxon didn't let us make enemies with the railway and the volunteer army, let's withdraw. He said the last sentence to the people in his team, and then he did not hesitate. The knights leading the team backed away slowly, opened the distance, turned and went back to Elder Maxon to report. Seeing the members of the Brotherhood of Steel leaving in a hurry, the heavy gunner yelled in a very happy mood, "Oh! Ha 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 ha! It's so cool! It's the first time I saw the Brotherhood of Steel being deflated. Ha 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 ha!" The surrounding soldiers also burst out laughing. The Brotherhood of Steel usually behaves domineeringly. Although they don't do bad things and often help the residents of the Federation, this style of behavior is not welcome at all. After laughing for a while, the heavy gunner also saw the lantern mark on the armor of the tank, and he frowned strangely. "When did we have tanks? How come we never heard of Desdemona? Perhaps P.A.M helped us find another pre-war American armory." Another soldier from the railway next to him said. "There were such tanks in the United States before the war?" The heavy gunner looked at this hideous tank and said while rubbing his chin, "Maybe." The railway soldier also looked at the red and black color scheme of the Tic tank with uncertainty, "But why does this look a bit like the style of the Yan Kingdom? I saw some American tanks." According to previous books, the soldiers of the Yan Kingdom invaders even ate children. The railway heavy gunner nodded and didn't care about that side anymore. The 3 Tic tanks directly advanced to the front of the battlefield, transforming into turret mode, and relying on the strong defense and firepower of the Tic tanks as a fulcrum, they established their own line of defense. On the other side, under Knight's intentional command, the Academy's synthetic human troops, which had an absolute advantage in numbers, directly attacked the coalition forces and the Brotherhood of Steel at the same time. Meanwhile, the Brotherhood of Steel camp. "What did you say? 3 tanks were dispatched from Bunker Hill? How could they have tanks?" Upon receiving the report from the Paladin Glade, Elder Maxon turned pale with shock, and at the same time, his face was filled with endless anger. With a gloomy expression, "No, how dare they use tanks?" At this moment, he felt that the dogma of the Brotherhood of Steel had been shamefully trampled on. That's right, and judging from the marks on the tanks, they belong to the railway. Paladin Glade said, "We should destroy those tanks immediately, and then think carefully after solving this college invasion incident. How should we deal with the railway? We are still at war with the Academy. At least on the surface, the railway and the volunteer army are still on the same front as us. If their tanks are destroyed, it will undoubtedly cause a 3-way melee." Paladin Dance retorted immediately. "Are we just sitting back and watching people on the railway use such super-standard technological items so arrogantly?" Glid said sharply. Elder Maxon pondered for a while, opened his eyes and said, Send an ultimatum to the railway organization, asking them to give up the ownership of the 3 tanks immediately, and we allow them to blow up the tanks to show that the Brotherhood of Steel has no desire for their tanks. If they say no, then let us do it for them. But, Elder. So, Paladin Dance wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Elder Maxon waving his hand. Do it now. Maxon said, Dance, you organize a team immediately, take all our rocket launchers, and go to the direction of the tank. If the negotiation fails, destroy the tank immediately. I request to lead a small team to launch an assault on the synthetic man of the Academy. Paladin Dance could only express his opposition with actions. Please agree, you go. Elder Maxon hit his chest hard with his right fist. Invincible. Invincible. The Paladin Dance returned the same salute, and then left without looking back. On the other side of the battlefield, Chunyuan said to Preston with a smile, you have seen the ultimatum. In fact, what we lack is only a reason to go to war. Preston frowned and said, while the synthetic human army is still attacking, we actually want to go to war with the Brotherhood of Steel. Are you kidding? Boss Yan. You have also seen the ultimatum of the Brotherhood of Steel. They cannot just sit back and watch us have things like tanks. Chunyuan said. What about synthetic humans? Actually, synthetic humans are no longer the main threat we need to consider. After this battle, Chunyuan said flatly. At the same time, the 3 tick tanks began to adjust the angle of the turret, and then the Getter machine gun installed on the side of the turret suddenly sprayed out a long tongue of flame. Countless bullets slant out like a metal storm at a super high rate of fire, and the target is the Asuka helicopter. The Brotherhood of Steel didn't expect that the coalition forces would turn their backs when they said they would turn their backs. They didn't bargain with them at all, and the answer was to start fighting. The 2 bird helicopters were instantly destroyed by the intensive firepower of the tick tanks, turning into fireballs and falling to the ground. At the same time, Knight also said to X-4-18, the time has come, turn your guns, mobilize all synths, including the Eradicator troops, ignore Bunker Mountain, and launch a general attack on the Brotherhood of Steel. What about the Bunker Mountain? X-4-18 asked. I've already dealt with it. Knight replied indifferently. The Brotherhood of Steel was furious when 2 bird helicopters were destroyed. Paladin Glade immediately led a team carrying a rocket launcher and rushed towards the railway position. However, just as they set off, what they met was a flood of synthetic human troops. The Academy seemed to be going all out, they ignored the Bunker Mountain at all, and launched a general attack on the Brotherhood of Steel crazily. The remaining bird helicopters were still hovering in the air, and the Brotherhood fighters above were desperately strafing the ground. But the Academy synthetics didn't care at all, and swarmed against the firepower in the sky. With great anger, Paladin Glid led 20 Brotherhood of Steel Knights directly to the position of Bunker Hill. But before they could get any closer, the ruins of several houses lay across, and the tick tanks opened fire. The radar system on the tank easily caught the signal of the power armor, and then the NE beta parasite controlling the tank immediately fired violently in that direction. Boom! A 90mm caliber high explosive shell exploded near Paladin Glid. Although it missed a certain distance, the shock wave of the explosion and the scattered shrapnel also set off an alarm in the internal system of the power armor. Similarly, the Brotherhood of Steel also has no concept of this kind of long-distance combat. Scatter immediately. Rush over. They only have 3 tanks. Glend yelled loudly, gnashing his teeth, they're just a bunch of mud legs. There is no right to own such technological items as tanks. Tanks should be owned by the Brotherhood of Steel Recovery. Charge. Invincible. Invincible. The Brotherhood Knights immediately scattered around and rushed over. The flexibility of the power armor is reflected at this moment. Even wearing heavy armor, the movements of the Brotherhood Knights are similar to ordinary people. They ran wildly among the ruins, and most of the tank's firepower fell into the empty space. Only one unlucky knight was hit by a 90mm caliber shell, and was sent flying tens of meters away by the shell, and his whole body was almost torn apart. Boom! Boom! Finally, 2 rockets exploded on the tank, but they did not penetrate the double armor tank in turret mode. The Knights of the Brotherhood of Steel finally rushed within the effective range of their weapons. While firing rockets, the dense laser beams emitted by the laser Gatling also began to flicker on the position. The coalition forces waiting in full battle immediately fought back, but most of their firepower could not threaten the Brotherhood Knights in power armor, and only these 3 tanks could really attack effectively. Suddenly, in the direction of the bunker mountain, only the sound of swoosh was heard, and 2 light spots with long tail flames flashed past. Immediately afterwards, the 2 Asuka helicopters were instantly blown to pieces. Chunyuan and Yi put down the Mistral anti-aircraft missile launcher on their shoulders, then took out a new missile from the side and installed it on the launcher, and started to lock and aim again. Wasteland, I don't need you, Brotherhood of Steel. Chunyuan aimed his sights at the Asuka helicopter in the sky, and fired the missile at the same time as the fire control radar beeped. Boom! Boom! 2 more Asuka helicopters were shot down. At this moment, the pilots of the Brotherhood of Steel finally realized that something was wrong. They climbed to the altitude one after another and began to evacuate from the battlefield. Without air support, the situation of the Brotherhood of Steel suddenly took a turn for the worse. To make matters worse, the current situation has suddenly turned into a joint attack on the Brotherhood of Steel by the Academy, the Volunteer Army, and the Railway. However, under Chunyuan's instruction, the coalition forces did not take the initiative to attack, but stood firm. Hey, the gate machine gun on the tank fired wildly, and the dense bullets hit the T-60 power armor with a clang, suppressing the Brotherhood Knights so that they couldn't lift their heads. Glid roared loudly and fired rockets at the tank. The dilapidated armor of a tank was finally penetrated after withstanding more than a dozen rockets. After the violent explosion, the tank and the inside the NE Beta parasite was immediately taken to the sky. Glade, retreat immediately. We were fooled. This battle is completely a conspiracy. The volunteer army has colluded with the Academy. Maxon's frantic voice came from the communicator. So I'm going to kill them. Destroy their tanks. Then plow the entire bunker mountain to the ground. Paladin Glade had no demeanor at all, he just roared hysterically. We don't have enough rockets to destroy the remaining 2 tanks. We have to return to the Pridewin and redistribute the weapons. A knight said beside him. Bastard. Glid punched the wall, but still gave the order to retreat. The Brotherhood of Steel's army began to retreat in an orderly manner, and their good military qualities allowed them to maintain a complete formation even during the retreat. There was no opening for the synthetics of the Academy at all. Watching the synths rushing to die one after another, and the Eradicator troops also suffered heavy losses, Knight continued to observe the battlefield. Soon, he saw a familiar figure. He shook his head with a wry smile, turned his head and said to X4-18, the information I got shows that the leading paladin in front should be a synthetic human. His name is Dance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 383. 377 Give me an explanation. Dance. During data retrieval, among our missing synthetics, there is no identity information named Dance. X4-18 replied. But I can be sure that person is a synthetic human, unless you think there are other organizations that can create synthetic human, then he is your thing. Knight said, pointing to the bloody paladin Dance. Understood, I immediately mobilized troops to besiege this person. When I get close enough to him, I can find his number, and then I can use the recovery code to recover him. X4-18 said. Then let's go. It's time for us to fight in person. Knight said, knocking on the T-51B power armor that he placed next to him. He secretly said sorry in his heart, because he was also impressed by the noble sentiment of Paladin Danse during the brief contact with the Cambridge police station. It's just very ironic that the most chivalrous person in the entire Brotherhood of Steel is a synthetic human. But Knight also understands that he is saving Danse now. He knew that Chun Yuan had made up his mind to drive the Brotherhood of Steel out of the Federation since the first day he dealt with the Brotherhood of Steel, and nothing could change his mind. Because even Knight himself could not agree with the idea of the Brotherhood of Steel. In fact, it should be said that he may not be unacceptable to the concept of the Brotherhood of Steel. But the change of the Brotherhood of Steel made him feel a little disgusted, because judging from his limited contact with the Brotherhood of Steel, they had indeed put their status above other residents of the Federation. This is absolutely unacceptable to Knight, who has experienced the pre-war society. Therefore, Chun Yuan has been planning, developing, and waiting until this opportunity comes. Knight also understood that it was because of himself, because he suddenly became the father of the leader of the college, and the huge power of the college suddenly stood behind him. That's why Chun Yuan took this opportunity to mobilize ahead of schedule to deal a heavy blow to the Brotherhood of Steel. Because the Academy is now a target that can be wooed, and they have already consumed thousands of synthetic human soldiers, and the elite Eradicator troops have also suffered heavy losses. If it was before, they can continue to shrink underground and replenish their synthetic human soldiers. The soldiers may recover their strength in less than half a year, and they will be unscathed. But I will not give them this chance, Chun Yuan said to Preston with a smile while standing on the wall of the bunker mountain. But seeing the smile on his face, Preston felt a little hairy in his heart, because he had no idea what Chun Yuan had done to let the three major forces of the college, the railway, and the Brotherhood of Steel be played by him. But he didn't ask this question either, he thought it might involve Chun Yuan's deepest secret. In fact, if he really asked, Chun Yuan might tell him frankly that it was because of a very capable fellow. Whether Preston could understand this sentence was another matter. Anyway, as people who have experienced the pre-war world, it's okay to call me a fellow, right? It's not the same world though. Preston sighed secretly, and asked, I still don't understand your thoughts. On the one hand, you are cooperating with the Academy, and on the other hand, you are preparing to attack them? You and the Brotherhood of Steel seem to have the same attitude. What are you going to do? Do you still want to bring the Academy under your control? Don't you know how much damage the Academy has caused to this Federation? Chun Yuan shook his head and said, the problem of the college will definitely be solved, they will disappear from this Federation forever, I can assure you of this. And when the college disappears, there will be no need for the railway to exist. What about the next road? It's their business to go. As for the Brotherhood of Steel, after I talked with Elder Maxon, I confirmed my opinion again. He is not willing to lower their self-proclaimed noble heads. I am not interested in their new order, so I will also drive them out of the Federation. Yes, I lied to him, he thought I was trying to work with him, but really I was just trying to get them out. No matter what, he never thought that I could get the Academy to cooperate with me, so he agreed to my request with absolute confidence in his strength. Because in his opinion, Brotherhood of Steel is stronger than the Academy and the Volunteer Army. As he said that, he turned to look at Preston, and said slowly, so, all obstacles are being cleared, the future of the Federation is in the hands of the Volunteer Army, in your hands. Me. I've decided not to lead the Volunteer Army anymore. It should be you or Knight. Preston sighed. No problem, it doesn't matter if you don't lead the Volunteer Army, let's lead the entire Federation. Chun Yuan patted him on the shoulder with a smile. You, Preston was dumbfounded. With the help of the Academy, this goal can be achieved. You have to fight against the Academy for a while, and then join forces with the Academy to attack the Brotherhood of Steel. After that, you say you won't give the Academy a chance, and now you want to control the entire Federation with the help of the Academy. If I hadn't known you for a long time, I would feel that you're already crazy. Preston felt that he couldn't keep up with Chen Yuyan's brain circuit at all. Chen Yuyan had already picked up the communicator, and said flatly, "It's time for you to play, Ramirez." Ramirez. By the way, the independent group. Don't you? Preston's expression changed. That's right, it's this good. Chen Yuyan looked into the distance. In the darkness over there, a few searchlights suddenly lit up. Then there was a burst of uneven and heavy footsteps, and the speed was very fast. A moment later, an army had already arrived at the gate of the bunker mountain. More than 100 soldiers, each with a brand new Scorpion I assault rifle, wearing body armor and Kevlar helmets, some of them even installed night vision goggles on the helmets. Their steps are steady, their bodies are strong, and everyone's eyes are shining with a murderous look. In this army, there are even more than 10 power armors. They have uniform clothing and uniform equipment. In this last days, this is a symbol of absolute strength. Seeing the arrival of this army, the leader of Bunbeo Mountain, Keller, suddenly turned pale with fright. This well-maintained middle-aged woman had a frightened expression on her face. She looked at Chen Yuyan and asked tremblingly, You, what exactly do you want to do? This is a very good military stronghold, so I decided to borrow it for a while and stay here for a few days. Chen Yuyan replied flatly, In addition, I will also take away the 4 synths hidden in the bunker mountain. Over there, Knight still needs to give a little explanation. Keller's face was completely pale. You mean, the Academy? You are from the Academy. She was on the side of the railway, and she was the eternal enemy of the Academy, but now Chen Yuyan but told her to give the Academy an explanation. Chen Yuyan snorted coldly and said, Let Deacon come to me. You are not qualified to check the things here. Of course, I will give an explanation on the railway side. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 384. 378 What is a person? Almost all the forces in Bunker Hill left during the counter-attack just now, and only a small number of left-behind personnel remained. It took the independent regiment less than 10 minutes to control the entire bunker mountain. Facing this clean-up army, the soldiers of the caravan did not have any intention of daring to contend with it. Chen Yuyan went directly to a small room in the underground base of Baobao Mountain, and he saw 4 synthetic humans coweringly hiding in it. B2-57, F6-33, Y9-15, Z3-22, are you the 4 synthetics? Chen Yuyan asked with a smile. Yes, are you here to save us? One of the short-haired women quickly stood up and said with a look of hope. Well, how should I put it? In order to catch you, the Academy spent a lot of money and sent thousands of synthetics. However, the good news is that the synthetics they sent suffered heavy losses, and they should be retreating soon. Chen Yuyan said, By the way, who are you? I am, B2-57. The woman seemed very reluctant to mention her number, and she asked eagerly, You mean, the Academy has already retreated? So we are safe? No, they haven't retreated yet, but they are coming soon. At most, there are still 10 minutes. Chen Yuyan shook his head. Are you short of the last blow? A bald synthetic man let out a long sigh of relief. Let's put it this way, because they only need to bring you with them, and they can retreat immediately. Chen Yuyan said seriously. The 4 synths suddenly turned pale with shock. What did you say? You are here to catch us? In a sense, yes. Chen Yuyan replied. Seeing that the 4 people seemed to want to resist, he sighed and said, Resisting is futile. Instead of wasting your energy, why not talk to me about it? Chat. At the same time, Yi has already picked up a dark-skinned synthetic man with a shortcut and pressed it against the wall. Even if the strength of a synthetic human is much greater than that of an ordinary person, he has no ability to resist at all. Seeing this scene, the other three immediately became honest. They were terrified, shivering at the foot of the wall one by one. No. I don't want to go back. The bald synthetic man said loudly. Chen Yuyan walked over, grabbed a chair and sat down, and asked, "Can you tell me why you don't want to go back to the academy?" B2-57 showed a painful look on her face, and she whispered, "The life of the college is like hell. Those scientists don't treat us as human beings at all. In their eyes, we are just tools that can be sacrificed at any time. Every day we do extremely heavy, extremely dangerous, and mechanically repetitive work. I'm done. I want to see a wider world. I want to know more. But, they never give us a chance. And as long as we make a slight mistake in our work, what awaits us is destruction and reconstruction. Even sometimes when they are in a bad mood, they will find fault with their eggs and find some reason to destroy us. We would rather die than go back." The bald synthetic man added. "Then what if you escaped? The railway will also brainwash you, implant a new memory into you, and then put you into human society to fend for yourself. In a sense, you did escape, but you were also dead. If so, why did you run away?" Chen Yuyan asked. "Because we're free," B2-57 said. "But you don't exist either. We still exist, it's just a different set of procedures. And at that time, we were out of the control of the academy, and we were free." Chen Yuyan was silent. In fact, what she said had some truth. Because although their memories have been replaced, they still exist in a physical sense. They are standing here as a whole, without missing arms or legs, able to run, jump, think and talk. Who can say that they do not exist anymore? But from a human point of view, they really don't exist anymore. Because their spirits, their memories, and their cognition are all gone, who can say that they are still the same people as before? Chen Yuyan remembered what Knight had told him before, about the views of the scientists of the Academy on human beings. They believe that human beings polluted by nuclear radiation are no longer human beings. That's why they are looking for pure human DNA, and that's why they claim to redefine human beings. From their point of view, it is actually very similar to the views of those synthetic humans. Should it be said that it is the reason why they came from the same place? Thinking further, the synthetic humans in front of them are no different from humans except for the implants in their brains. And these synthetic humans in front of them are afraid, happy, thinking, and learning. So are they human? Or is it still just a tool? This is a very philosophical topic. Chen Yuyan smiled, and decided not to pay attention to it. He didn't want to care about people or synthetic people, he just wanted to follow his intuition. "Go back," Chen Yuyan said, "the academy won't destroy you." He didn't say much, stood up and knocked on the door, and several soldiers from the independent regiment who had been waiting outside immediately walked in and took the four synths dragged out. Boom! There was a violent explosion, the sound of the wreckage of a pre-war nuclear-powered car that crashed into a house. The small nuclear explosion emptied a large area of the surrounding synthetic soldiers. Paladin Dance couldn't help squatting down and gasping for breath. Even with the assistance of power armor, he was exhausted and almost collapsed under the siege of hundreds of synthetic human soldiers. Just now he almost relied on the power armor to resist the small nuclear explosion, because he knew that this would give him a little breathing time. Just half an hour ago, all the Academy synthetics pointed in his direction and attacked wildly as if they were going crazy. After paying the price of more than 200 synths, Dance's team was successfully separated from the Brotherhood of Steel's large force, and 4 or 5 knights were killed or injured by the Brotherhood of Steel. If it weren't for Dance's iron will and skilled combat skills, he and his team would have been wiped out long ago. But now, their downfall seems to be only a matter of time. However, Dance didn't notice at this time that there was another synthetic man under his feet that hadn't been completely destroyed. The only remaining electronic eye on the head of this synthetic man was constantly flashing, sending an encrypted signal to it. It has been confirmed that the Paladin Dance is indeed the missing synthetic man of the Academy, numbered M7-97, he has queried the database and obtained his shutdown password. X4-18 turned to Knight and said, "Understood, let me recover him." Knight nodded, driving the T-51B power armor and rushing towards Paladin Dance. Dance saw a man in white powered armor rushing towards him, and immediately pulled himself together, stood up, picked up his laser rifle and fired a burst of fire. However, the person who came was moving very fast, and was still changing direction irregularly while rushing forward. Most of the laser beams hit the ground, and the few laser beams that hit were also blocked by the T-51B power armor with silver ablation coating, which was useless. Boom! With a loud bang, Knight punched Dance. Dan's eye was staggered from the beating, and he was furious in his heart. He also threw away the laser rifle and smashed it with an iron fist. The two people wearing the most advanced power armor fought together in the most primitive way, and even rolled several times on the ground. Bang bang bang. There was another heavy punch and kick, and Knight took 2 steps back. He felt that if Dance was in full condition, he would be no less powerful than him. He shook his head, turned on the loudspeaker on the power armor, and said loudly, "Enough. Synth Dance. Number M7-97, now, stop it. Thank you for the 1000 starting coins rewarded by Star Sea Rangers."